All right. Welcome to the Bike Rumor podcast. And today we're trying something different. We brought the whole team in and we're going to discuss the month's news in Bike Rumor and also talk about our favorite products, favorite comments, all kind of new things. So thanks for joining us. And today we're doing video too. If you're listening to the audio version of this, you are not seeing any video. But if you're seeing video, congratulations. You get to meet everybody and we're all here hanging out. So,
Hey.
So it's I guess it is mid-November now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about all the new haps and coolest things, but first I guess let's get an intro with everybody. We have pretty much the whole core crew here.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I'm Zach Overholt. I'm the editor-in-chief. Been with BikeRumor, for 15 years. Well, Tyler, how many years has it been? It's like one less for me than you.
Dude, so did you come on that early? Yeah, so I signed off kind of around 15 and a half, 16 years, I think.
Yeah, so 14, 15 years.
Well,
like
middle of 08, and we're in the middle. Yeah, so actually a little over 16.
All right, there you go. Obviously, that's Tyler Benedict, founder. Moving on, Ron.
Cycling lifestyle editor, Ron. I've been with BikeRumor for going on 10 years.
I'm Cory Benson, from the EU tech editor. I've been around for a decade as well.
All right. And I'm Jordan Villella. I've been with BikeRumor for about, what do you say, like 4 years? 3 years?
It's been more than that, hasn't it?
It has to be.
Yeah.
I feel like, let's just say 5. We'll say 5.
I don't know. When did Dirt Rag kick the bucket?
I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
been that long.
But you went from Dirt Rag to MTBR, right?
Yeah.
And then, so how long were you at MTBR?
Quite a while. I don't know.
I swear, it was before the pandemic, for sure, right?
It was pre-pandemic, yeah, because it was that new Epic launch.
Yeah, and that's at least 4+ years. So I don't know, 5, 6, something like that.
We're gonna go 5, 6.
Okay,
5, 6er. And I am the racing tech editor. I like all the, all the spandexy stuff, all the racing gear, watching the races, talking about how to make your bike lighter, make you faster without having to train.
Our incredible new podcast host.
Yeah, the brand new podcast host. I got a mic that's off screen, makes me the most valid one here, because that makes you. All right. So, yeah, let's talk about some pieces here. Who'd like to start? Cory has. So let's just say, since this is a new format here and we're kind of rolling this out, we're not just going to do November. Moving forward, we'll be doing the month, round it up, talk about our, the latest and greatest and coolest fun stuff. But for right now, we're just going to kind of go back because there's stuff that we weren't able to talk about that was cool. And we talked about it online, but we'd like to talk about it in the podcast and like to give each other some, some crap about it. So, Cory, you want to start with you because you're first on the list here.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was trying to think if I just, I'm the EU side, so I was wondering if my topics were any way European, but the first one totally is. So the first one I was going to talk about is new Brompton, the G-Line. I guess it was in the middle of September, so about 2 months ago. They had this had the first Brompton that brought 20-inch wheels to little folders, and the concept ostensibly was that it's making a gravel bike folder, but I think it has actually some pretty interesting potential. It's weird because obviously it's less small when it's got bigger wheels, but I think a lot of people would never really took Brompton seriously because they had some really weird niche wheel size that you basically couldn't get a lot of tires or whatever for. And now they've gone for like mainstream 20-inch, so you can get everything from fast rolling roadish tires. Now they worked with, I think, Schwalbe to have a actual like high volume gravel tire that's like fast rolling, but I'm kind of curious because you could put some proper like little knobby 20-inch mountain bike tires like off kids' bikes on there and get pretty rowdy with it. So I think it's quite weird.
What's the rear derailleur on it? It looks very specific. Like, I don't know how stable a 20-inch bike would feel. Like, it's like riding a BMX bike, like for...
More stable than 16-inch wheels, so...
Exactly.
I think.
It's got that going for it.
More stable than 16-inch wheels with like little tiny super narrow tires, too.
Have you ridden it yet, Cory?
Yeah. I have not ridden it. I actually need to get in touch with them. They're supposed to get me one, and I have been too busy to deal with it. Actually, maybe also because I broke my back because I'm an idiot. Or, yeah, not really broken, but definitely bruised. So I'm a bit curious about riding a tiny little thing like this, bouncing around all the time. But no, it has their weird like proprietary drivetrains stuff. Like that's definitely something that Brompton's all about. Like either they have their own 3-speed derailleurs or internally geared hubs, and then they have chain tensioners.
Yeah, it looks cool. It looks like
Yeah, it looks like it's the Shimano Alpine with an 8-speed internal gear hub, and that's just a derailleur hanger chain tensioner, essentially.
Well, that is what is on the normal one. There's also then they have an e-bike version that has like a 4-speed cassette on it, which is their own proprietary one and this their own little weird derailleur. So, but yeah, the standard pedal powered whatever one does have an Alpine 8-speed hub. But I think that what's interesting is just that it's actually much closer to being something standardized, and I think that will open up to do more stuff with it. Plus, it's the first. I think it's the first one that actually has different sizes, which sounds funny, but they're always so small with telescoping everything, like handlebars or I don't know the stem. Super
and
weird,
it's flat
long
bar,
steer
right?
stems.
It's not drop bar, right?
It is flat bar. I've
So
definitely have into a bar as well. They think really with the flat bars it makes it.
We lost you, Cory.
Lost him. Sure, it wasn't important anyway.
Just so everyone's aware, Cory is broadcasting from the Czech Republic. So.
I'll just continue his thoughts.
The hamster stopped on the wheel or what?
It's that helmet in the background. The helmet's putting. It's the Wi-Fi.
But it's Arrow.
Are you there, Cory?
He's there. Well, he's had more day. I mean, I'm in PA and it's afternoon. I think it's like probably 5 for him there. All right, so we'll move on to the next one.
Are tired.
He's got a slightly panicked look on his face right now.
He'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. So we'll come back to Cory. I'll move on here. Ron, do you want to go for yours?
Yeah. Which one do you want me to start with?
I'd say number 1's probably the one to start with.
That's a good place to start.
I'd say just grab it from the middle. We'll bounce around.
Well, my number 1 is the new bar tape, the new Trout bar tape from Camp and Go Slow.
Nice.
It's a small company. He actually has a day job. He's a potter, and his name's Casey Clark.
Like a potter, like ceramics?
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
You can follow him on Great Basin Pottery.
Write that down. I love ceramic stuff.
He built his own kiln. He does it kind of old school, but he also contracts whoever makes that tape. The guys that make the Western and the Eastern Rattler tape, and it's, in my opinion, it's probably some of the best tape out there. It's the best tape I've ever used. It's washable. It's got just enough padding, not too much. About like 1.5 millimeters of padding. It's got like a nylon weave. It's super durable. It's not very stretchy, so you can reuse it. And I've been a fan of the Western Rattler bar tape forever. The new trout tape is kind of an homage to the brown trout. So it kind of looks like trout scales. Very handsome.
Tyler's laughing.
Because
I got kids. Brown trout means something else sometimes.
Let's be honest, Tyler. You thought that well before you had kids.
Right.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Just, if anybody wants to know, if you want to make Tyler laugh, you just have to talk about poo-poo and pee-pee.
It's never not funny.
That's really never not funny. Anyway, so that's
I like the tape. I mean, it looks cool. It's definitely
really
got
good.
this like, almost like it's really fall vibey. I dig that.
Yeah, it's super. I think it's really handsome, and if you have like a leather saddle, like a Brooks saddle, or it really pops the saddle, and I don't know, it's really more about how good you look, not how fast you go.
So this is the same company that does
that.
the Rattler bar tape as well, which everyone knows. And I gotta admit, like the bags that you posted the other day with the matching bar tape to the fringe on the bag, like it looked pretty cool. Like it looked very intentional. So
yeah, I dig their vibe. They got a cool one. They handlebar plugs, everything like that. It's unique. It's cool. You don't get any blisters with this bar tape?
No,
I'm just asking. I got like baby
I
hands.
mean, I can run it without gloves, and it actually stays pretty grippy even when you get sweaty. But I'm mostly gloved on that tape. But
yeah,
mostly because I like to keep it cleaner, and my hands get sweaty, and then it gets a little bit grimy. But simple soap and water washes it right off, and then puts it right back to almost new looking. So
nice.
how does it
Yeah,
work?
they're good.
Like, how good is it when you need to unwrap your bar and then can you rewrap it? Like, will it rip?
yeah, you can rewrap. It doesn't stretch. So I mean, it stretches a smidge, but yeah, you can rewrap it. I've used the same roll probably on 3 different bars that I've been testing,
Nice.
and it works great. It still looks good, and
That's something
I
to
love it.
consider, I think, for a lot of people when they're looking at bar tape or something like that. You know, like the price of that tape, it's pretty expensive. It's $44 for
Yeah.
a roll.
it is.
Like it's, you know, you can pick up a pair of or a set of cork tape for what, half that. But the difference is like a lot of those cork tapes, you go to unroll it or unwrap it because you need to fix your shifter position or something like that. A lot of times you'll tear it and then you'll have to replace it anyway. So if you can reuse
The whole
it,
thing.
yeah, if you can reuse it a few times, then kind of makes that price a little more approachable.
That's the one thing I dislike about
the rolls are 3,300 millimeters, so each. So they're super duper long. So you can wrap the widest bars if you needed to, like even like a Walmart bar that's like 55 centimeters, or
Nice.
even
that's huge.
the towel rack from that's 600 centimeters. So or 600 millimeters. Sorry.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hate having to replace bar tape like that. And anytime, even if you make a mistake or reroute something, I was rerouting or rewrapping some bars and it had supercast tape on it. I love that tape, but when you go to rewrap it, it has the the adhesive that's wrapped already on, and you pull it and you have to like really like gingerly get it off, and once you pull it, you're done.
And of course, the commenters picked up on that.
They did,
and as they should, because it didn't look good. It was mismatched.
Yeah, I was pretty much done, but we'll bring that up later. But yeah, that was definitely I had to chime in and be like, no, the bike came dialed. This is my bar tape frustration.
Yeah.
So let's move on to number 2, Ron. This was a huge post for us. And I think it was a huge topic for everybody because the pros closet was just, I mean, it's like it was an institution as far as like where everybody goes, to sell their stuff. You had the pros closet, protested gear out in Virginia. And, we're seeing some of these places close down, and it's interesting.
Well, I think for them, I think it started with the COVID boom. I think they overstocked and then couldn't get rid of bikes. And I think part of it too is they expanded too fast. And during that expansion, when they acquired like the Radivist, and they're spending a lot of money, and I just don't think they were able to recover from the COVID. At least that's the story. So, and then they tried to lay off. I think they laid off 15% of their workforce, and that didn't help. And then they finally decided to close doors. But yeah,
and with that came a big auction, which was there. I found myself on the auction site before we had even posted it because I was like, "What are they selling?" And it was like there was some cool stuff. There was some like EVT repair stands and things like that, but there was also a lot of like there were a bunch of trash cans and tables and things.
Right. I think people like myself, I would have been looking for the things I want. I'm like, where are the piles of tubular tires?
Yeah.
Like, no, dude, that's on the site. We're here selling the nuts and bolts. So they were selling like the actual, pieces.
Yeah, so I had caught that
the infrastructure.
They were having a big sale on all the bike inventory. That was well before the actual auction.
Right.
And I went to the site as well to see, just curious, like to see what kind of stuff they had. And almost everything was gone at that point already. And I had flashbacks to when the shop that I worked at was bought by a new owner and then eventually closed. And then we had like a going out of business sale. And it was just like, just like vultures descending on the place, like buying everything they could, pennies on the dollar.
Vultures in general. I mean, I've definitely anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
I love
cyclists love a sale.
Things.
Me included.
And I hoard tires, like, I mean, it's like if you have one pair of tires, you want to have the same pair, but like, backups and things like that. And yeah, we all have the bins, everybody.
Some more than others.
I don't need it now, but I'm going to need this, like, I don't know, roll them a jig for somebody's project.
27.2 Caloy seat post.
That's what's going to happen. Yeah. And when someone needs it, you're going to be like, I don't know. That's for a special occasion, you know.
Post
Having fun on the bike.
I did a post about the auction, and I had no idea when I did the post that all of the bike inventory was depleted. It seemed like, because all they were selling was like mats and lamps and staples.
Yeah.
Got this sweet lamp
that was in the building, other than anything that cyclists would really want.
Yeah.
And yes, that post was like one of the top performing posts we've ever done.
Yeah.
That's what was really
because I think everyone was rushing to see the same stuff that we were. We're like, what are they selling, right? And then they're like, oh,
that's pretty much it.
cans.
Yeah.
But so obviously the latest part of that story is like shortly after we posted that closeout auction, they're actually back, right? Like somebody else.
I saw a Brain article, like it was like within like a week, and I was like, well, we're gonna have to update that because that happened so fast. So they're back
really fast. Like didn't make any sense to me.
Well, it seemed like from what I read that it was, they let the bankruptcy proceedings conclude, so then the new owners wouldn't have to assume any of the debt and financial liability of the old operation, and then they can, just flip the lights back on and start fresh, basically.
They can't. The lights are gone.
Well, yeah. They did sell those.
They sold the lamps, not the lights.
Okay,
it's like
the building is still a shell. It has some lights up top.
You have to work.
The bulbs aren't in.
So they're good to go then.
They're going to put all the trash cans are gone.
Well, the trash cans are gone.
Yeah, so their website has a message on the front. It says, we took a bit of a spill, but the TPC is back on track to being the destination, blah, blah, blah. It says it'll be a bit before they have bikes for sale. So, right now it seems like they're just regrouping. And it says their doors are open for sellers. So they have their sell trade page working. And so they're ramping up for future.
That's good news because
hopefully they do better and change up their model a little bit. I thought they were, even for used bikes, I thought it was, some of the pricing was ridiculous. But
I mean, part of their shtick was like it was rare bikes, right? Like ex-pro bikes and things. And
at first it was, but then it just became just used bikes, right?
I think there's always a model. Yeah, there's always a model for that, I think, because you want to be able to just give it to somebody. Like, I don't want to have to do this. Like I'm well-versed a little bit in eBay, but, you go to Craigslist, you have to, do some of these, you get the meetup, you got the, oh, I know you, I did a race with you. And then you feel bad selling full price. Or, you're like, I'll about $5 less and I'll give you a pack of gum or something with it. And it's going to offset. It's just like so much. And it's like, don't want to haggle, don't want to do anything. You just give it to them. It works, in my
eyes. It's like the eBay stores,
service.
right? It's like being able to take your stuff to a store and have somebody else eBay it for you so you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah,
but they'll
fantastic.
Take 40-50% or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and then you also have an audience that's looking for at a spot like TPC, and you're dealing with knowledgeable buyers that know what they're looking at. So when you price a used bike for $5,000, you're not going to get some guy on Craigslist that, usually has ridden a Huffy his whole life. Going,
yeah.
Why much is my car? What? So yeah, there's a market for it, but
it's kind of like Bicycle and their new forum, right? The dedicated forum for buying and selling components. Seems like there's more options these days for consumers to sell their old goods to, people who are actually looking and knowing what these things are worth, but it's still,
which is funny that the Radivist actually has the same exact thing on their site.
Yeah, the Bazaar, right? The Rad Bazaar.
Yeah, something.
That's cool. I mean, I think the place where it's all about if you are able to find the stuff you need, and if you don't know what you need, someone can be there to assist you. Because there's nothing worse than seeing somebody. I mean, when I worked in shops, that was the worst. Someone will come in and like, "Hey, I bought this new bike. It's a 21," and I'm like, "Well, that is an awesome bike. It's not going to fit you, but someone would be very happy to have this bike." They bought like a 140 stem. It's really light. Yeah, man, you're not able to ride this stem. So they need to, and then that turns people off from bicycle purchasing. They just, it's so much, different stuff. So hopefully it helps people buy the right bike stuff that they need and, get out there on bikes.
Agreed. Cool.
So Ron, you got a seat post collar in here as your next one. What's the deal with this?
Oh, that's the Chris King seat post collar that I thought already existed.
Yeah, I swore that it did too.
It's the best Chris King color ever. I love the mango color.
So here's the question. Did we perhaps see like a prototype of it at some trade show somewhere?
Not according to Jay. JC emailed me and said, you probably already, that's how he started the email. You probably think this already exists, but surprisingly, we've never done one.
So is this
I feel like it should have been out there.
Is this the bicycle Mandela effect? Because I don't know. Some people say that they don't claim that they remember it, but I swear it was out there, but I don't know.
You just assume it would be because the companies that produce hubs produce, all these extra little bits to kind of, it seems like the second thing.
Right.
But they don't make stems.
Yeah.
Right. Like anybody that's anodizing pretty colors, you think they make all the bling that you need. You imagine that you could go there to get hubs.
Yeah.
Fucking, sorry.
No apologies. We'll just believe
Shut the door behind you.
Bottle bolts, stems, headsets, bottom brackets. I assumed they already had them, but they didn't. Anyway, so I posted on it, and it's a pretty piece. It's a little on the heavy side, but it's also got stainless steel hardware, so it was a lot heavier than my Wolf Tooth one that was on that same bike that I put it on, but that had titanium hardware.
Let's be clear. When we're talking a lot heavier, are we talking 20 grams, 100 grams?
No,
10 grams?
If I remember right, it was in the 20 to 30 gram difference.
So we're talking about
a lot for such a small part.
Yeah. No, and it's got a lot of material on it too, whereas the Wolf Tooth's pretty shaved down.
But it looks cool. I think we're talking looking cool
on the bike. I think it looks better on the bike because it's the same blue as my Chris King headset, and the Wolf Tooth one was a little bit off. And
I mean that's what.
It's also got curvy Chris King shapes as well, right? So you can.
Yeah,
there's lots of like super machine down collars and stuff. And it's like, well, if you have something else that matches that, it works. But if you got everything swoopy and round and carbony stems and things like that, and it makes sense to have something that's
definitely design cues. It definitely took design cues from the headset cups. It's got that same radius, so it matches that as well as the color. It looks nice on the bike.
It's good to have Cory back, by the way.
I don't know. Technology is not always. I don't know if the technology is part of my title. I don't know what's going on, but whatever.
So, Ron, we had the C post that goes into another one that was kind of funny that it grew, so many comments is a stem. Cane Creek's
38 It's a stem.
Well, I mean, it's a stem. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, it could be silver or
anything to talk about.
Not silver.
It has a
pretty stem that Cane Creek makes, and it looks like an old stem from the old days to me.
Yeah,
so I don't know where everybody. I don't know what everybody's very excited or either very not excited about.
Well, I think it looks conventional, like it wouldn't stand out on the bike. Sometimes you get these stems and they look so futuristic. Like for the road bikes, like the new Cadex stem, it's awesome. But if you don't pair it with a bar that looks equivalent, it looks like you have this super space age component with analog goofiness. Like it doesn't match together.
No, I get it. And it is sleek. It's minimalistic. And I do like the fact that it comes into like a polished silver, which is really hard to find. Not really hard. If you look like at places like Rivendell and places where no one would look, not no one, but not a lot of people.
At some of the rare companies too, like, Ritchie.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's, I didn't think it was that. I mean, I thought it was a neat stem, but I didn't think it warranted that many times.
I think it just goes to, like everyone, I have a box of stems, right? And like every time I need a stem, I go.
Hold on. Not like everyone, like all of us.
Okay. All right. Well, like
people that are
bike
listening
shops,
to this have a box of stems.
And
they know.
People that have been in this
box
like riding long enough, they probably have, an assortment of stems. But so when I need a stem, I pull out the box and there's like multiple stems that are the right length and clamp diameter that I need. But I'm like, those graphics, nope. That paint, nope. Like the Cane Creek stem looks clean. There's not like aggressive branding. It's just like it's a clean looking stem, and I think that's what it's also not super expensive. So like,
right,
you have people that it looks clean. It's not expensive. It's pretty light. It checks all the boxes, and therefore it's pretty simple. It's something that we probably all take for granted, but like it doesn't have a giant. I don't want to single out any specific brand, but it doesn't have a giant FSA or a race face logo on the side of it. you know.
Busted.
Well, we're seeing that, I think, in the industry now, like to bring up KDEX again, like their stuff is super subdued, and there's a lot of companies now that are putting out this matte kind of carbon look where they match everything. Because I think now if you're buying a bike that's going to require, it sounds so dumb, a stem, right? Because like a lot of these road bikes and, other bikes are coming with the bar stem combos, I mean, Canyon, like half of their bikes, and drop bar bike, they're getting that bar stem combo. So now it's almost like it's not a boutique item, but you're definitely going to want something that's not so calling it out, like the old Easton stems that you're like, whoa, that's definitely
or just being able to match the bar to your post and your handlebar, right? Like I don't want like an FSA stem with a NV bar, right? Like having that mismatch when all the logos are so big, it starts to look like a junkie or NASCAR or something.
Yeah. Or it just clearly calls out the fact that they're not, a match set.
Yeah, that's a big thing. It's like if it's not matchy, then it just looks.
Key branding is always the way to go. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Hey, quick. So I just looked it up, Ron. Chris King, 34.9 seat post collar is 32 grams. A Wolf Tooth, 34.9 is 20 grams. So it's a 12-gram difference, which is, that's something.
60%.
Yeah.
60% heavier. Unacceptable.
But it's not 20 or 30 grams.
Sell it, Ron.
I just
Sell it.
Hold on a second. Okay. Does the Wolf Tooth that you looked at have titanium hardware? No, it does not.
No, stainless steel.
Ooh, burn.
Mine had titanium hardware. It's the only one I had. So
that's like forgetting a Cliff Bar before the ride. Like this is like this is you could.
If we're gonna go.
Thinking like how heavy this multi-tool is. It's like definitely more than that.
I just didn't want Chris King to come back to us and be like, Ron said this was 30 grams heavier.
Ron said this is heavy. That's it. We'll have to.
I'm gonna look through my photos because I have the weight.
The next episode we'll have all the.
I'm looking at your photo, Ron.
Of both of them?
32 grams for the Chris King one?
Yeah. Is there not a Wolf picture there too?
No, you didn't.
I think I weighed side by side because, like I said, one had stainless steel and one had titanium hardware.
Well, you didn't include that in the post, so.
I know. There's a reason. It's not apples.
Ridiculous. All right, so let's bring it back to Cory. Cory, you got cut off. We're just going to say Brompton. Pretty stoked to have that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Have
it's
a gravel
weird.
bike. It's weird but cool. I want to see. I'd love to hear your thoughts when you get, if you get a chance to ride it, because it's got to be different to handle.
Oh, for sure. I've talked to a couple of friends who have, so I'm definitely curious to do it. I mean, riding anything with small wheels off road is weird and sketchy, and I've ridden plenty of sketchy bikes, and it's surprising how many weird sketchy bikes actually still are functional. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. But
That's awesome.
The next one I was talking about was there's this new Ribble 3D printed titanium. I guess it's an all road bike, and it's like, okay, well, 3D printed titanium.
Tyler, what are you doing?
Anymore. Exactly. What is Tyler doing?
I have to go get a cord to plug my phone.
Then mute it.
I'm muting Tyler.
Too late. Yeah, mute me.
That we see lots of 3D printed everything now, like 3D printed saddles and components and stems and weird bars on custom Danger Home bikes. This is a bike that's 3D printed titanium, and it's cheap. I mean, it's not like real human cheap, but it's like titanium cheap. So they have a complete bike that has all these like 3D printed components, and it's all like super swoopy and cool, and it sells for starts at like $4,000, 800 euros, $4,150, and that's a complete bike. I mean, we're looking at other titanium bikes that very often are more than that for a frame set now, which is, of course, seems insane. But
it looks beautiful. I mean,
it looks really good. It's interesting because it's not like every single thing isn't 3D printed. They're just like, I think, selective and picking the things that would turn into like cool swoopy designs. They 3D printed it, like 3D printing a seat cluster, 3D printing the head tube, and making smooth transitions into more traditional tubes as well. It's just cool. It's nice. It's nice to see something that is like going for that weird full integration with exotic materials, and it doesn't cost like an ungodly amount of money.
So I'm going to be a super buzzkill right here. What makes this better than a carbon bike? Because it looks carbon. Like when I think of
Yeah.
So when I look at a Thai bike, I think of like Sage or someone that has these like beefcake tubes. They look really cool. Like it looks stout. Like what's the advantage of having a Thai bike? I mean, it's beautiful. Like this thing looks awesome.
I think it kind of it really just comes down to personal preference. The ride quality of titanium is typically different, and traditionally has more of a springy feel or more lively feel than carbon, where carbon tends to be more jittery or rigid, even though it can be tuned quite a lot. I think it's personal preference. I mean, you're buying a premium bike, you can pick what you want. I have titanium bikes myself. I have a Thai gravel bike that's only, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years old. But I also have a Boots Thai 29er hardtail that's, I don't know, like 18, 20 years old, and it's definitely a bike that I will always have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lifetime frame material. It's something you keep for the rest of your
life. The durability factor, as long as they don't crack, like an old Airborne or something like that, it's
Airborne. Wow. You went way back on that. Nice one.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like the idea really is that forever bike. It's really nice to have a bike that doesn't have to have paint, no finish on it. That you get it, you scratch it and you just get some, Scotch-Brite pad and you buff it out, and it's like, oh, it's good as new again. Or it really, if you have some of the bikes, like, I bought my Moots almost 20 years ago and it was a lot more affordable. I can take that bike, send it to Moots again today, and they'll refinish it and make it look like one of their new bikes, and they can make it look brand new again if you really want it.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty cool idea.
The weight to strength ratio for titanium's off the charts. So
when I look at this, I get some heavy Blackheart vibes.
Yeah.
Have you seen their Thai bike, their road bike?
I look at it and I get a little bit of a chubby. So
it's a beautiful bike. I mean, it's like fully integrated. It looks really fast, but really traditional. Like the top tube isn't so sloping, it kind of has that like, CAD 10, vibes that like really gave me that. That's where I like that. That was like the ultimate crit bike for me, or at least all the people that were faster than me. I thought their bike was cooler and that made them go faster.
I love the way the fork looks.
Yeah. So let's say, I mean, there's a place for titanium and high-end bikes that are performance-driven bikes like this that are getting more sculpted.
So. And especially when you're talking about like an all-road bike, where it's a bike made really to ride anything. It's a bike that looks good as a road bike. You could put some decent, little gravel tires in there and kind of go just about anywhere. I don't remember. I think it's like 35 millimeter or something tire clearance, which of course that's nothing compared to like modern gravel bike, but I suspect all of us have ridden a lot of gravel roads on 35 millimeter tires.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's super versatile.
Well, and it seems like the design allows fully internal cable routing better than a lot of Thai bikes as well. So it looks, if you want that modern look, it gives you that.
Yeah, that's a hard thing with.
If you're going to talk about this, you got to talk about that number 22 one that was at the Made show. That thing was full aero, titanium, crazy integrated, gorgeous.
Those guys. Reactor aero. The interesting thing is that that reactor aero from number 22, 4 times as expensive as this one.
Yeah, and that's you can get just for the frame.
The frame set, exactly.
Awesome.
You can get 4 of these complete bikes. You can get it now instead of the 22. I think isn't available still yet.
22 is even in production.
Like I think it said like like a year out or something. But
when
I mean, even if you compare it to
though,
things like more standard, whatever their bikes, most of them that have Thai bikes that have any 3D printed parts in them at all are at least 2 to 3 times more than this bike. So it's not the best bike ever, but it's pretty amazing that they're able to do something that's like this kind of top of the line feel and look. Price that is accessible, like because when you start talking about $10,000 bikes, it's just like people are like glossing over. Like, yeah, that's not even realistic.
As they should. Those bikes are they're out of price with reality, and I think
it's great that they're making them. Like, for sure, keep doing that, and they'll we'll get some
there's a
more
market somewhere.
technology.
Yeah.
Also, like I was looking at like this other bikes from like aluminum bikes from Standard in Berlin, and they're building whatever steel and aluminum bikes and scandium bikes, and just looking at like one of their specs, they have a bike that was with a like force axis wireless group set. Their model this year is like 500 euros cheaper than it was 5 years ago, because there's that technology that seemed so crazy 5 years ago is more affordable now. Like, it's still not cheap, but the pricing of a lot of these things is coming down, and maybe this is a sign that 3D printed titanium can come down in price, and that there can be options that aren't 10,000 euros and still have a profit margin. Ribble has to make some money, sure.
Yeah,
they have a consumer direct distribution partner, so there's of options there, but it's cool to see.
So if you want to see something, if you guys haven't seen it yet, because it's not widespread, Sage Titanium posted this on their Instagram, and it's just a small prototype piece for a new bike that they're working on. They didn't talk about what the bike is or anything, but it's a 3D printed dropout for the brake side, non-drive side, which they've been doing on a lot of their bikes now for a while. But if you look at this one, the brake tabs for the flat mount, the whole thing is to go, so the brake will be like as the rotor's coming toward the front, and then the tabs where it bolts into are offset. So you put the caliper in like this, and you bolt from the top down on the back and the bottom up on the front, and the whole thing is printed to allow that caliper to tuck into the chainstay. So it's really tight in there. It looks like a super cool design, and that's totally unique. Like, I've not seen anything like it before.
That actually makes me think of, what was it? Jay Laverack did that crazy one that actually they 3D printed the body of the brake into the fork leg and the dropout. Literally, they had like a pistons that went directly into the frame. It was this crazy. It was the crazy Austin Martin road bike they made. And it was pretty nuts. Like, the brake caliper itself was just integrated into the frame. Of course, like, then everything's so proprietary, and that's at the same time this like neatly integrated stuff is pretty awesome. But it's also like feels like the worst thing in the world when everything is so proprietary that you can't. You can, like, with that like Austin Martin J Laverack bike, if you actually had a problem with it, it's like, well, can you replace any of the parts in the brake?
Just take it to your local Aston dealership. Come on. I mean,
that thing's too much,
right around the corner.
It looks beautiful, but holy crap. I mean, it's just that's
totally impractical.
Like, that goes on the wall. Yeah. It just goes on the wall.
That would be so painful, though, if somebody bought that bike and then just hung it on the wall. That's like my biggest pet peeve.
That's what I would do, because this is a theoretical thing. I'm never going to have this. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I have the feeling that the bikes that should hang on the wall are the ones that you cannot ride anymore because they're not safe, because you were riding it in and it's made of like super light carbon and it's about to explode.
Got a few of those where the tubes would spin.
Yeah.
Well, so what do we have next on your list here? We have...
We're going to go way over our time for the day, by the way.
Yeah, that's all right. We were going to have the 10-minute timer, but I forgot to set it to be like, boop. But the last one is the better, more natural feeling EMTB drivetrains, or excuse me, just EMTB.
Actually, the e-bike drive systems or power systems. So, like, I was always kind of a skeptic on the high-powered e-bike motors because they were like so powerful and so off and on, like it made it hard to ride them, or it wasn't necessarily always comfortable to ride. So I usually if I was going to go for a e-mountain bike, it'd be much more in line with like a lighter, just smoother power transfer. But like some of the latest ones I've ridden are like night and day. So there's a new version of the Bosch CX motor, their normal top one, not the race mode, but just the normal power motor. And it has the same power output. It has the same max torque. It has the same max assist level. But it actually is so much better. Like, it's just
smoother power transfer. It's so much more like pleasurable to ride and to feel like you're actually riding something that is supporting you instead of dragging you around. And I've just been riding the new GI motor in this Amflow bike, which is crazy that it's like light as the lighter motor, almost as light as the lightweight motors, but it's so incredibly powerful. But it has really, really good auto sensing modes where you basically, it's not giving you a lot of power except for when you really do need it, and it really responds a lot to you putting your own input into it. And then like even now, just I guess over the summer, Shimano updated their like latest, the EP8 801 motor with a new firmware that basically gave you more control, and they were kind of calling it a race tune. What's actually kind of, again, what's most interesting to me is that you can actually, the end user can pick what they want. So you can pick if you wanted to like have really smooth transition off of power when you get to the like speed limit. You can have it a really smooth transition once you stop pedaling, that it slowly ramps down how much power it's giving you. You can make it power longer after you stop pedaling. Just like the adjustability of these systems now has gotten so much better that you can really tune these e-bikes way more to like how you prefer to ride them. You know, if you want something that is more natural, or if you want to feel it like super torquey on and off or whatnot. I think it's kind of
almost like they looked at what Specialized was doing with their app, 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah,
finally made it possible.
Yeah,
that was one of the most. I mean, that they're really popular around here with the GNCC races, and those riders, they want to have the ability to tune the bike to their specific riding style and get the most out of the battery each time, so that's almost like you're tuning like a moto. But I totally get what you're saying. Like when you get on an e-bike and it feels lurchy or it feels weird, it just doesn't make you want to ride it more. It makes you feel like it's just more of a thing to get appeals.
Too big of a gap. I love the Bosch stuff, and this is, like the older stuff a little bit on like a commuter bike, and the Shimano stuff on a commuter bike. But I've noticed with both of those, there was sometimes such a big jump between like the middle mode and the top mode that you'd be going, and it was too much, right? You need to be able to like bring those closer together, or for them to add like a fourth step. So some of them have like, whatever they're called, Eco Trail Turbo, and then like crazy boost. Just having better gradations from one to another makes it feel a lot more natural. It makes it more likely you're going to use all the modes too.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those you can tune on the apps and stuff.
Yeah, that's the big thing. So now you can tune that with most of the big brands now, and that was something that in the Specialized had some good tuning options before, but I think then maybe TQ was one that had the broadest range of adjustability that you could do in their lightweight system. Maybe that was first like 2.5 or 3 years ago. Now I think everybody realized like, oh, we can do that. It's literally software. And it took a while, I guess, to make the software work and turn it, because it is firmware, I guess, so it's not always so smart and adaptable, but
yeah,
definitely quality of ride and your control on getting what you want out of these like modern e-bikes, the top of the line from kind of everybody right now, is just getting so much better.
Yeah, I feel that for sure.
Hey, can we? I don't want to cut anybody off, but can we talk about that Lauf hub? Are we talking about that this time around?
Yeah, let's
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I'm looking. That's on the list, man. That's it.
We're going down the list, Ron.
It's on the list for like tomorrow on this podcast. Or are we going to keep talking all the way?
Let's keep going.
Exactly. I mean, the flaw in the concept of the 5 of us talking about bike tech shit is that you can like literally talk for an infinite amount of time, which
just keep going. Yeah.
Well, let's move on then to Jordan's topics, which he started with the Lauf. So
yeah,
topic, Jordan.
So yeah, I'll keep these short and sweet as much as we can. So the Lauf Elja, I love that bike. I'm still riding it a ton, and it gave me this like for those that don't know, this is Lauf bikes from Iceland. As of right now, they've made gravel bikes and road bikes, all road bikes, and this is their first mountain bike. and the mountain bike is more cross country / like trail oriented. And yeah, it's very unique looking. Check it out on our site. And I've been in love with it. I think it's fantastic. It's really empowering the way it rides. Like I feel like I can handle better, mostly because like, you know, it's got that 2.6-inch tire, but it doesn't inhibit the way that it's, you know, that it makes it fast. You know, it feels really fast. And
what 2.6-inch tire do you have on it?
so that is the Goodyear Peak. So it came with the bike. It's like, you know, they did it, came with the bike, and it's fast. I mean, it's a fast rolling tire, and you don't feel too much like sluggishness or anything like that. The only thing about the bike, really, like everything I love about it, except the only thing I don't like is the water bottles.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no place to put water bottles. And if I'm going to go out for an 1.5 hour ride, like, you know, something in my, you know, in my area real quick, I just like to get a water bottle. I don't need a pack. I don't need to like do all this. And you could use those little ones that slap in from the side. What are they called?
Fidlock.
Yeah. I hate them. I'm sorry. I can't. Yeah. I can't do them. They
what about
rattle.
What about the Chris King, the King Cage one? Can you fit that one in there where it slides? It's like off camber, and
it's like you need a flask, you know, like the old Surly flask. That's like what's going in there. Like it's really small. You can fit one sort of like the Trek one, but it has to be like a 250 milliliter bottle or something really small. It's too small for me. But the bike is outstanding. I've just been having a blast on it. And yeah, I needed to mention it because, you know, riding out in Iceland, it was great, you know, but you have all this other stuff going on, all this other sensory input, you know, you're out there and you're riding and everything's fun. And, you know, the trails are new and unique to you. You're on this really cool bike, but then bringing it home, I had just as much fun. You know, it climbs really well. It descends really well.
Does it have bottle bosses on the bottom of the down tube?
Yeah, it looks like
does.
So you could fit a regular size bottle as long as you're okay with it on the down tube.
As long as you're okay with a dirty, muddy, or
yeah, you have to run one with a cap.
Yeah. I'm not going down there.
You could probably fit a medium-sized one in there if you only did one inside the triangle. They did have two mounts, both for the really small bottles on most frame sizes, both intended.
Well, when you say that, Tyler, you mean for a large frame like you would ride. You probably can't do that on one of the smaller frames.
I think even on the medium, you could get like a medium-sized bottle in there, but you'd only get one.
Yeah, like the horizontal bottle under the top tube, right? Because I think there's quite a lot of space above the shock.
Yeah, and there's one that goes on the top tube too, like looking at it's just I don't know.
Like
I'm pretty conventional with it.
It's so inconvenient to get a bottle under the top tube.
And I could hear on some of the climbs, I could hear the bottles sloshing around, you know? And I was like, like it felt like when you're on like a really long day and you've had nothing but like, you know, gels and whatever, and you're like climbing and it's like sloshing around your stomach. And I was like, that's what it feels like when I'm riding this. So
it is weird how disturbing it is to have a bottle horizontal in your bike and now it sloshes around, and somehow that feels and seems different than when it's like in like a normal position. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot of times where I'm just like, I want the bottles where they are usually at, you know, and that's it. I have a weird problem with that. But either way, I just wanted to say, you know, how much I've been enjoying the bike. It's very cool.
Yeah, I'll second all that.
Can't get over the aesthetics of it.
Yeah,
it's a little different looking. Yeah,
you're gonna get in the room. You see what I did there?
Looks like
nice.
Like old race chainstay bikes from freaking 90s, man.
It does. You know, when they unveiled it, it had a bit of like a whoa. You know, like kind of like what's going on here, because it is very striking.
We're introducing ourselves to a new bike.
Yeah, it's different. Let's just say that
the swing arm kind of looks like they like punched it in and had AI design it. Yeah, it's like one of those like generative formation things that you'd see, and like, you know, I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but it's just
no, it's super different. There's so much. It reminds me of like it's just hyper engineered looking. There's a lot of different things moving along, but then when you listen to the explanation, it's not so hyper engineered sounding. So
it looks like it was made in Viking land.
It's let me get you this bike here.
That was an Iceland joke, people.
Oh, I got it.
We know, Ron. We were just moving along.
It just wasn't fun.
All right, so next for me is a bike that's, you know, we had recently up on the site. It's a Crux, a specialized Crux DSW, the alloy version of the Crux. And Yeah, reviews getting a lot of comments. I think people are a little like this. For me, I remember the old Cruxes, the old like alloy ones, and they were always like neon and really rad, and you could like do all this stuff with them. And I was really stoked because I'm a big fan of the Crux. I think it's a fantastic bike. It's not like a cyclocross race bike like it used to be. It's more, I mean, it's a gravel bike now. And there's a few things that they've, postured more towards gravel than cyclocross. The top tube's a little different, things like that. But the alloy one really is a good bike. I was a little bummed with the spec. I had a brake fail, which was a bummer. The spec is the SRAM Apex 1x Mechanical, and it was fine. Like it shifted fine. I had a brake like explode as I was going downhill, so that was
so that was you had it was the Stealth-A-Majig that failed, right, from SRAM.
Yeah.
Has anyone else here ever experienced that? Is that like a one-off?
What's a Stealth-A-Majig?
It's the quick connect that they use to join the hose to the brake lever, usually in manufacturing. And
no thanks.
So it seems like a pretty rare occurrence. Like I don't know.
It seemed to be. SRAM was pretty. They were taken back by it, so they got that back, got it out for me, and the one, I guess, if I didn't get hurt, nothing like that happened. I got to see kind of like how to reroute some of the the brake hose and things like that for the bike, which I was like, oh god, I got to reroute this thing, and it wasn't bad at all. With an alloy frame, sometimes things aren't as molded, and you're able to kind of cruise the the hose through. But this was nice. I think it's going to be a really popular frame. I'd like to see it in more colors, like more unique colors, because it's so like, if I'm going to buy an alloy frame, I don't want it to look like carbon frame. I want it to look alloy. I want it to look like cool.
Well, the frame set options, they have some cool colors, right?
Yeah.
I like the frame set. Yeah, those colors are cool.
But then again,
what do you
like
stand
for the complete bike,
that's the smart weld technology.
What is it?
Which is actually pretty fascinating. What
smart weld?
It's
the
not
Lucio or something
warehouse.
like that. Yeah.
Wait, what?
But nothing wrong. It's okay. It's okay.
Come on, man. We're talking about the welds. I thought we were talking about the welds.
Yeah, we were, and they said like what DSW stood for.
Not that shoe warehouse.
I think on this bike, along with the alloy full suspension mountain bike, they've done such a good job of really, not just the welds are so beautiful, but the way they shape the tubes with hydroforming or however they're doing it to make those tubes mold in. So you said you don't like an alloy bike to look like carbon. I think these come pretty close at some key joints. But I think the other thing really worth checking out on these bikes, both the Crux alloy and the alloy full susser, I'm totally spacing on the model name, but the way they did the bottom bracket integration into, I think one of them really molds it, like flares it into the down tube, and I think the other one flares it into the C tube. It's gorgeous. Like the way they're doing it's gorgeous.
I like that there's space.
This one looks like the down tube, like the seat tube punctures the down tube.
Yeah, it goes right in. It's one big
bottom bracket.
Yeah, it's one full piece of of material. And one thing that the idea behind the bike is that there is a place for high-end aluminum road bikes or raceable aluminum road bikes. Like the Chisel, the hardtail. I still ride that thing. I reviewed it, I don't know, 4 years ago or whatever. And it's awesome. It's the same geometry. And that's what Specialized gets right 100%, is that no one wants a dumbed down geometry that's different from the race bike. They take the race bike, put it in the alloy frame, and then it's just as good. That's why the Alloys, the Sprint had such a great response, over the years. The Chisel has a great response now. And this one's cool. I think the only thing I'd like to see with this is possibly a different build. But it comes in under, I think it's like $2,600 with a full bike. It's ready to go. And it's super light for what it is. You take the seat post off and, upgrade the wheels. Let's just say you could probably get it down to 17 pounds. I think it's 20 just came in. It was killer.
Well, it's like the frame set alone is $1,700. So if it retails for $2,400, that's not a lot for $2,600. So it's just it's $900 for the complete build, essentially. So it's hard to pass that up, even if you want to do a custom build, like you have something to start with.
Totally. And that's, we were talking on the comments a bit about that because someone was like, is this affordable frame set? And I was like, I don't know. You put it, in juxtaposition with like a $5,000 frame set that's like, you're like, I guess it seems affordable, like
that's the thing with affordability. Like, it's all relative, right? Like, you can argue like, well, a $1,200 bike isn't affordable to somebody who can afford it. Well, even a $500 bike isn't affordable to somebody who can't afford it. But, putting that bike in the context of other things at similar performance levels, yes, this one is like more affordable than something that would be comparable.
Yeah.
And, that being said, there's still a market for the $12,000 road bike. Yeah. So it's like, who would ever thought that was ever going to come around? I remember when $3,000 or $4,000 was a ton of money for a bike.
You remember when it was a ton of money for a house?
That burn coming quickly.
I wish I had a timer to see when the old jokes are going to start, but
we'll put a ticker on the bottom of the screen.
Basically.
You'll get it later. Okay, last one here for me is the Canyon helmet. This is, people were giving me a lot of crap. I showed up to some of the, cyclocross rides with it, and it does look goofy. Like when you get it and you got to put it on, the knob's in the middle of your head, and you take it off and you put it down. But I dig it. I totally dig this helmet. I wear it all the time. It's not like it doesn't get like that sweaty, like after cyclocross races or like mountain bike races where it's a little muddy. You get this like crusty strap. You got to hose the strap off and like try and like scrub it, and it never really gets all of it off, and it smells like a hockey helmet when you put it on. Like I'm not into that. And this one takes all that away. The padding is like, I'm sure you're gonna get some funk there over the next, whatever, but I like it, and I dig the high bar system.
I think my favorite picture in the whole article is the one where the straps across your foot.
Yeah, it looked like RoboCop in it, and I'm completely fine with it. But like, you know what? The most annoying thing out of the entire package, like, if you want to say like, okay, what's weird about it? Like, you get used to the knob that goes, that you tighten, get used to it not really hitting your face, but taking it off, you have to take your sunglasses off. So like, you have your sunglasses on, you go and pull it up, and like, it's it's weird. So it's just like these little things you get used to, but it's a good helmet, and I like it. So those are the ones that I felt like, they had a little bit of, people were a little, there's a lot of opinions about a few of those pieces.
You really got like a nice blue steel look going on in one of those pictures.
I tried it, man. You got to take pictures by yourself, and you can't not make those. And you're like, is this ironic or not? It's like the shirt with the wolf on it, like howling at the moon with the, the trees in the background. And you're like, do I like this now? Or is this ironic? Has it become so ironic that now it's me?
It looks good. So it looks good.
Well, thank you. That's, I go for that. I do all my own
Ron
work.
is right. The one with it on your forehead. That's classic.
You should that look like RoboCop. And I was like, nah, I can't do it. I was going to put.
Gives me vibes of like people wearing helmets backwards,
Yeah.
Well, that's the worst. I had a customer do that before, and he'd like tighten the knob down, and I was like, oh, we're going to have a long test ride, because just don't want that to happen.
Looks just like that. So like,
it does.
Yeah.
It does.
All right,
I guess so that's me. That's
cool.
Me.
Thank you. I guess I'll move on to me. One of the things I've been riding and enjoying a lot is the new Pivot Volt, the cross bike, or not cross bike. You've got me talking about cross. The gravel bike. It used to be a cross bike at one point, and it's slowly evolved into a purpose-built gravel bike. And it was a bike that I was pretty excited about getting in. It's lived up to its expectations, which, may be slightly different than what a lot of people are expecting from Pivot. Like, it's really just like a really good, middle of the line gravel bike. Like, it doesn't feel like a super race oriented bike, but it also isn't like a crazy, aggressive mountain bike, gravel bike with suspension and all that kind of stuff. So, the geometry is really dialed on it. It's for a small, it fits me really well without, with a 70 mil stem. Like, it's a modern fit. But I haven't had a lot of gravel bikes that have fit me well out of the box without some sort of stem adjustment and that sort of thing. So it seems like they really dialed the geometry on it. And, it's got things like they've got the ISOFlex seat tube insert to dampen the ride vibrations. It's way smaller than the previous version, so it doesn't look what it does. It is noticeable. Like it's smooth, and it almost gives you, like it's almost like a suspension seat post vibe where you have to kind of get used to it moving more than it would on a traditional frame, like on a fully, out-kitted race carbon gravel bike with a carbon seat post. You feel that stiffness between the seat and the rest of the bike. This is not there. Like it's still a pretty, like it's way more, fixed than, say a suspension seat post. But at the same time, you notice that there's something going on, that it's a muted feel between the saddle and the actual seat tube itself. So it does seem to work. I like that it's smaller, less intrusive to the design, and it's got their tool shed, so that's the internal storage on the down tube. It's a pretty small tube and opening, so you're not going to fit a ton of stuff in there, but it's still pretty functional. Like I was able to get most of my ride kit stuffed in there, and you don't have stuff hanging off the saddle or the handlebar. So overall, it's lived up to expectations. I'll have a full review of it coming up soon, but overall, just pretty excited about that bike. They did a good job on it.
It looks nice.
It doesn't hurt your brain to see that weird seat cluster that's like big fat weird thing and a tiny little.
It's a lot smaller than it used to be. Like it's still there, but like it's way less noticeable than what it looks like. It almost looks like if you look at the current model and you looked at it compared to like something else, you'd almost be forgiven thinking it's some aero treatment. Like it's not necessarily a seat tube elastomer, which is what it is. So.
Yeah, when I first saw this new one, I actually wondered if they did away with it before I read anything about it.
Yeah,
because the old one was big.
The old one was very big.
What's that, Ron?
Do they have super short chainstays? It looks all tucked.
I don't think it's. I mean, it's 420, so
that's pretty.
It can hold 5 large water bottles.
Oh, dude, the mounts are off the chart. Like it has everything. So it has the internal storage, plus it has all the mounts on the down tube, and then it has three bosses under the top tube, and then 2 bosses on top of the top tube. So like, plus it has hidden fender mounts. It could be outfitted for just about everything you want. It doesn't have like internal dynamo routing or anything like that, but that's really not their target market. But it has a lot of potential. So.
What's the target market that needs 5 large water bottle buses but not dynamo routing? What's that target audience?
Someone who lives in Arizona.
What's that?
Rechargeable lights?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. 2 of those bottle cages are just for your like giant Knight Rider batteries.
Knight Rider batteries.
Yeah.
This is retro.
My Knight Rider batteries from 99.
I don't want to even know how much that bike weighed for their photos with like the 5 water bottles all filled with water. Like it must have been so heavy. At that point, you're forcing yourself to carry more water because you're carrying extra weight.
5 kilos more. That's
yeah. So good job, Pivot. That's a good bike. Yeah. Another interesting one. So I had Patrick Leclerc, the president of Blivet Sports. It's basically a company that's founded out of Quebec City in Canada. Reach out to me. I'd never heard of them before. And he wanted me to check out their new boots, fat bike boots. Well, technically a winter riding boot. And at the same token, I was looking at their website. They got a lot of products that are designed for winter riding, and as you'd expect from somebody up in Canada. These boots, like I didn't expect much at first. I was actually more interested in the tire covers, which I'll get to in just a second. But he sent me a pair. This is the new Kilo FLT Gen 2. It is one of the lightest winter boots I think I've ever laid my hands on. It's a 41. This weighs 490 grams for a single boot. So it's really light. This has got a Vibram outsole, the custom rubber and EVT midsole. It's got, it's a Cordura upper, insulate, 200 gram insulation. It's rated down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit or -18 Celsius if you prefer. It is flat pedal specific. They have a clipless version that's the classic. That's a different shoe, but I just can't get over how light it is. And the other thing that I was really surprised at, when he offered to send me a set, I just ordered the same size I'd run in a 45 North, which is a 42, and I got it, and it was way too big. And I was like, okay. So I needed a 41 and he sent me that. And so I got talking to Patrick, and it turns out that they specifically designed the last and the design of the boot. So you have a traditional true to size fit lengthwise, but a 4E toe box. So it allows you like a ton of room around your toes, even when you're running thick winter socks like most people do. So a lot of things, typical in the winter boot market, a lot of people size up to run a thicker sock so that it isn't crushing your toes and cutting off circulation, making your toes cold. These, you don't have to do that. So you wear a normal size, and it gives you plenty of room around your toes for room with a really thick winter sock. So it's pretty interesting. I haven't tried them out yet, obviously, because it's not winter yet. We've had a very warm fall, but I'm very interested to try them out. Like they feel like they flex pretty well for pedaling, and they're really light. They claim to be waterproof, so it's an interesting addition to the fat biking and winter cycling world. So excited to try those out. But the other thing,
nice.
What really caught my attention was their tire covers, which I know sounds like a weird thing. But so I've gotten to the point where for winter fat biking, I pretty much always put my bike in my car. It's like the road salt is just so bad for the bikes. When you're driving it on a rack, you got the tire spray coming up, it'll just eat your bike alive. So I got to the point where I was like, okay, come winter time, I just throw the bike in the car. The issue with that is winter, I almost always run studded tires. And studded tires will tear the shit out of the car. I was moving this tire around this morning. I cut my toe. Like these things are gnarly. Like you don't want them anywhere near anything that you don't want damaged. And so they have this tire cover. It's the Tinder tire cover. That's a TINDR. That might be important, but it's just it goes over your studded tires. It's one piece that's cut in the middle. So you start. Just Velcro it onto your tire and then wrap it around, and then you'll just Velcro it onto the end. Holds it in place. It's one size fits all for all fat bikes, so 26 by 4 up to 27.5 by 4.5. And it's it got a heavy duty center section, so it's not going to scrape anything, and elastic on the side. You can throw this in your car. It's not going to destroy anything. I haven't tried it yet. It seems like it might actually work pretty well on bike racks, to prevent the studs from tearing into like a tray style bike rack as well. So, and they're not too expensive. They're $51 for a set. So
waterproof?
I don't know. It's a good question.
That was a problem we always have when we, same thing, throwing studded tires in the car. But then, of course, every ride, your wheels are packed with like snow and ice. Yeah. And then you put them in the car and they start to melt on the way home. And then you're like, oh.
Yeah, that's a good question. It probably would do. So it's a nylon side channel with a 600 denier polyester center. So it probably would do a pretty good job. One of the other things I thought of, even if you're not running studded tires and you run a fat bike, if you get real muddy and you need to put it in the car, seems like a good option too. Like it would still cover it up. So I don't know. Like it was an interesting product that certainly filled a niche that I've experienced. Pretty excited to put the boots to the test. Hopefully we actually have a winter. Every year it seems like it's been less and less snow. It's currently 65 degrees here in mid-November. So not normal by any means, but so
not normal.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. Excited to try that stuff out. And then I guess moving on to my last bit of thing was
that was my like 2 days ago,
Nice. Yeah, of course still getting winter. Yeah.
For those that can't see, Cory just took a cell phone and smashed it up to the camera with a picture of winter.
Yeah.
Illustrate winter. Functional, but yes, there's snow outside, so.
Snow outside. It's raining. Actually, just my cat's outside my door just scratching, just angrily.
Actually raining here today too, but hopefully the snow comes back tomorrow.
Yeah. And the last thing that I have to talk about is something we've gotten a lot of comments about. There's been questions all over the place, but it's essentially our founder Tyler's retirement notification officially. For those who For those who missed the lead up until now, Tyler ended up selling the site in 2020. It kind of surprised all of us. Lola Digital Media bought it. Lola is now called. What's that?
Big surprise.
Yeah, we were very surprised. But fortunately, Lola Digital Media, who's now All Gear Digital, has been a great company to work with. They've been, allowing us to grow and continue the site. So Tyler has been in the background ever since, like still working and, still doing a pretty heavy workload, but he's slowly been tapering it off. And up until what was it, a couple weeks ago, he officially announced his retirement from BikeRumor. But obviously, he's still here. You can still see him. Occasionally, you'll see.
I just can't quit you guys.
Yeah, and so I'll hand it over to him and let him explain, what the future is holding and what you can expect.
Yeah, it's funny. I've prolonged that for quite a few times, just because I have and still do have such a backlog of reviews that I wanted to get done. So you'll still see my byline pop up now and then for products that, sit behind me, a ton of products like we all do, just such a backlog of things that I feel, obligated to the companies that trusted me with their products to tell the stories. You'll see my name up there a little bit, but as far as the day-to-day news goes, I'm 100% out of that. Yeah, it was just a long time coming. I mean, 16 years of doing something that was super awesome and has given me so many great experiences and so many great friends and relationships. I mean, there's almost nowhere in the world I can't go now and hook up with somebody that I know from the bike industry, which is just a fantastic feeling. I've traveled with the family forever, and it's just given us a chance to really get to know areas on a more intimate level through a local's eyes as opposed to just doing all the touristy stuff. So it's just BikeRumor has given me way more than I've ever been able to contribute to that. And just stoked that I was able to help assemble this team that you're seeing or hearing now. And, you guys have taken it beyond what I did with it. And, anyway, 16 years was enough. I needed to pursue other opportunities. I've always liked tinkering and experimenting with different things.
Yeah.
Take what I learned from selling it and from what the new owners have done with it and seeing how they've done things differently and trying to apply that to my next adventure.
And what are your next adventures?
NFT, is it?
No, we tried that. That didn't work out so well. I've kind of had a site called Adventurous Way of Life that I started actually like right after I sold BikeRumor in 2020 and just never really knew what to do with it. And so it's sort of sat there. And as I've gotten more into, my kids are a little older, so it's not so much like a family trip in the minivan or the huge RV we had. Now it's a little more chances to, maybe take my son or my wife or my daughter one at a time and go out and explore more back roads in a smaller vehicle or in our van. Yeah. So basically it's a site kind of about the gear and the travel and the adventures for like overland, van life, that kind of stuff. And, it's something I'm really into and something I'm really enjoying. Just got back from SEMA. Actually, SEMA is a show I've always wanted to go to. I think it's Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association for cars. And so that was just like, somebody who's always been into cars also. It was just like going to Disney, all the different, there's an entire hall for overland stuff. And then there's an entire hall for like racing and tuner cars. And then like half a hall for car audio, which I geek out on. So it's just like a kid to candy store getting to walk around and like see all these amazing vehicles and amazing sound systems and killer builds and
How many e-bikes did you see?
What's e-bike scene there?
Not a ton, but what I did see that was pleasantly surprised is a lot of the vehicles had bikes on their racks and almost all of them were like, there was like Pivots and Specialized and Santa Cruz. Like it was like good bikes. And there were definitely some bike people there. So you can tell a lot of these people that are into overland are, they have these rigs built out so they can go get to some of the more remote trails and go ride. And
Nice.
Yeah, super fun.
Cool.
Well,
That's
and
awesome.
I definitely want to thank you for giving me my start and giving us a lot of opportunity throughout the years. So definitely very much appreciated. And for those who are curious or worried, like there aren't going to be any big changes to the site. We had some people like after your post questioning like BikeRumor's going away. Like, no, it's not. It's been running the same way essentially now for 4 years. So,
I think a lot of people were like wondering, make sure Ron stays.
There were a lot of concerned emails. I mean, actually, they're written
letters.
We're still getting them now.
Is that a poke to my fan base is old like me? Is that what
Pony
that is?
Express.
That's
Come on, man.
Okay. Carrier pigeons, they like Tyler.
Well, I wanted to thank Tyler too for taking a chance on me in 2016 and bringing me on. It changed. Bikes has been my life for a long time, and it's you guys are a great group of people to work with, and I've been blessed to be a part of this. So
right back at you, Ron.
Same, Ron.
All right, and I guess real quick, going back to one of Tyler's post-retirement posts, the Lauf
like a bad penny.
Lauf hub patent. Here you go, Ron. We're getting into it.
Yeah, like what I love about the Lauf guys, I really do love that crew, is just they think about things so differently. It's going just to the Elja launch. Jordan and I were both at that launch in Iceland, and it was listening to the presentation was as comical as the presentation they did for their road bike. Whereas like they're like, well, here's all these fancy numbers and charts and graphs and schematics and science and all this stuff, and yeah, it's good, but you could just also do it this way, and it's way simpler. And then it was like the next feature is blah 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 blah. Then we just did this. Blah 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 blah. We just did this. And it's like everything about that Elja, single pivot, right? Like there's no linkages, there's no funny kinematics. It's the whole design principle after they looked at like all the popular mountain bikes and they were showing us everything they looked at. It was like everything that's interesting, right? All the different, suspension linkage patents and designs and everything. And they're like, at the end of the day, all these things with all these linkages are all trying to get their pivot right about here. So we just put our pivot there and it works great. That was literally what they said. And and Jordan's loving it. I loved it when I rode it. I mean, it's just a fantastic bike. You're like, yeah, like why overthink it? And so I was looking at this hub patent and I'm like, man, like, I've pulled hubs apart and had the little pawls and the springs go flying and lost them. And I'm like, great. Well, now I need to wait 2 weeks to get another tiny spring to rebuild this hub so I can ride. Or, the little clip springs. I'm just like, yeah, like they probably looked at this and saw these little teeny parts and had that same problem. And they're like, why are these little parts here when you could literally just have a thing with a fixed pawl? And I mean, it's a leaf spring. It's essentially a leaf spring as a pawl, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, they have their leaf springs forked. So maybe that's where the idea came from too. But, yeah, it's just super simple. And you look at it and the way they did it with, like the ability for those pawls to like, I'm using air quotes here, stretch, because, you're not really stretching metal, but it's the way the wave or the design is. It allows one pawl to connect and then kind of like stay connected as it rolls into the next one. And then so ultimately you can have multiple pawls connect in a sequence, very rapid sequence. And the nice thing about that is, their explanation is like, I'm sure we've all had it, right? You're coasting, and if you have a certain number of degrees of rotation, you can pedal and it'll be like ping, and you just hear it like vibrate through the spokes, and you feel it sometimes if you're really just all of a sudden hammering from a coast. And this one kind of like, it'll just like ease that on just enough to avoid that really hard clang sound, which I imagine could also prolong the life of the hubs and everything else that's going on. But even more interesting was like the way the design possibilities that this opens up, where you could have, like 20 rows of these things all sequenced, or like, 20 rows of 5 out of phase. So you have so many possible points of engagements that it's literally like thousands of points of engagements to where it's essentially instantaneous engagement and instant acceleration, but super simple, like, no moving parts.
So my question is when
is the hub silent? Do you have the hub or is it?
It's just
no, it's
right
total
now, right?
Just a
vaporware.
patent,
Yeah, it's just patent.
Paperwork. So I wonder if that would make it silent.
I mean, you still got metal teeth on metal ratchets.
Right.
It would just be infinitely buzzing, just like it's infinitely engaged. Because I mean, if the idea that it's all, that you have a huge number of points of engagement, that doesn't mean they're all engaged. It just means that there's always a couple that are engaged, and the others are still clicking and spinning around. I think it's kind of not so dissimilar to the Hydra stuff with Industry 9 of relying on like some flex of a system inside to always have something really close to being able to engage. So it's probably going to have that really just, you have that whir of the really high engagement.
Yeah, I think the key difference, because if you look at Industry 9's, the way it's done is, and I'm not knocking their products, they're incredible, but the teeth on their drive ring are super tiny to get so many points of engagement. And with the Lauf, you can just simply like phase them enough where you have full-size teeth and full-size paws, engaged for potentially a much stronger connection, or at least a more solid connection.
I really like the idea where this, like, being able to stack phases on there. That was we had a prototype loops drive thing that was in the beginning of I guess it was the beginning of the spring. That's a Polish company that's had a prototype, and again, this idea that, like, oh well, you don't need to just have smaller teeth. Smaller teeth is not the solution. That's not a durable solution to put inside the hub. But if you can have something like this where you could have locked sets of whatever toothed rings or whatever, I don't know what you would call this ring, like the Paul ring with all these little like fins or something radiating away from it. Quite an interesting concept.
Yeah. The real novelty of it is the fact that there's no little springs and pawls and moving parts that could get lost, because ultimately it's engaging in a very similar fashion. It's teeth on a ratchet, right? But the design iterations that this allows, because you don't have all these tiny moving parts, allows for a far more robust free hub body design, because what you thread the free hub body onto could actually run like all the way through the hub, and those ratcheting parts are, lengthwise through the entire shell of the hub almost. So instead of relying on like a free hub body with a tiny ring right there at the end of the hub shell, and I mean, take any hub, I don't care how good it is, and if you apply torque to one or the other, and they're only connected by, like maybe at the most a centimeter of contact area and bearing there, you're going to get some flex, right? So if you could all of a sudden have that free hub mounted to a thing that slides all the way through the shell of the hub, you're just going to eliminate so much flex, and therefore eliminate kind of misalignment from the torque when you're really hammering. So yeah, it could solve more problems.
It seems like it could be pretty difficult to manufacture, though, right? Like, I mean, at least by the patent drawings, it's these like tiny little fingers that, like, how are they going to create that? And well, I mean, they're trying to shop around and get somebody else to make it for them. But it seems like in order to make something that is stout enough to hold your entire power, that on all these tiny little fingers. But I guess the more of those fingers you have engaged at one point, the stronger it would be. But it just seems.
But they're really simple in section. So I mean, in reality, like I don't know if the patent talked about materials at all, but like assuming would make this like rings of out of like some high strength steel or something, you could probably just laser or water jet cut like stacks of these little guys and then just slide them in. So I mean, I think in reality it might be easy to make that part. That might be the easiest part to make. I mean, making the inside of a hub shell that has, I guess, a toothed interface that's precise enough and smooth enough to be able to slide, stack these things in might be harder. And then, like, the free hub body, I guess that's other side. But, like, again, has to be a really long interface that, of course, as Tyler's saying, it's got whole hub shell, whole hub system and axle. Everything is flexing. You're pedaling and putting power down, and the trick in doing something like this is figuring out how to make it handle the flex and adapt to that and not try to be overly stiff.
A couple thoughts. So, and like an interesting fact about the patent that I'll get to in a second. So, like, if I were going to armchair quarterback the manufacturing, right? Like, if you look at the way Industry 9 does their pedals, EDM, so electrical something, it's like it's wire cut, electrical discharge manufacturing, but it's basically like a super thin wire that runs incredibly high voltage through it that just slices the metal. And so they're able to use a really, really hard metal. And I could see them for the part with the tiny, like, leaf spring pawls, that could totally be EDM cut, I imagine. And then the ratchet ring could probably just be punched out of a similarly hard metal, which is what a lot of things do too. But I think it could also be laser cut, or EDM cut, because I think Industry 9 EDM's that part as well. But But the interesting thing about the patent they sent is all Lauf sent was the drawings. They didn't send the patent filing. I had a few notes from Benedict there about some of the thoughts, but their main goal with this was to get the drawings out in the public, because that is actually sort of part of the process, is to get it publicly displayed so that it's now out in the world as a Lauf patent, which makes it it offers them some protections before the patent is actually filed. So like people know, okay, hey, Lauf is working on this. It's out in the wild. Don't copy it.
So are they planning on using this for hubs for their own bikes, or are they going to sell it aftermarket? Do they say anything about it?
Their real plan, I believe, is just to license the design. So I think they're already talking to some hub manufacturers.
Nice.
Yeah, super interesting. I love that kind of creativity, right? Like here's a thing that we've all been riding, something the same that's made effectively the same way, shy of a few variations for how many decades or century or something, and all of a sudden there's this really novel concept, and it's kind of like I look at it and always want to start like picking apart other things and thinking about how they could be done differently, but then I don't. So
you got enough on your plate. Although
he's got free time.
Right.
Totally true.
Free time in retirement.
Tyler's always got at least 3 things going at one time.
He never has actual free time.
Yeah. It's all self-imposed, so I can't complain. But yeah, I've always got stuff I'm working.
So here's the question: you gonna go out for American Ninja Warrior again now that you got more time?
Oh man, no, probably not. Yeah, I just had shoulder surgery, so like I keep thinking about all the writing I want to do. Maybe this was caused by actually trying to do Ninja Warrior stuff years ago. But
we've all got bad shoulders, I think. So
yeah,
it's funny. Like, and this one is like I'm getting my range of motion back, so I can raise my arm like this, but like this one raising up, I can do it, but I can feel the bones that are going to have to get fixed on this side after this one's fully healed.
No
Chuck
fun
it up
mold.
Good
Get
times.
it later. All right, so wrapping up. Okay, so we don't really have a lot about what's coming up for next month. We do, but we can't give any of the cool stuff away. So no embargoed information, but there's a lot of cool things coming out in the next month. And in this section, for anybody listening, we'd like to be able to read some on-air questions on air, right? So like any questions you have, like, what are all those hats behind Ron? Like just weird things. I would say less about, the appearance of the people in the podcast, but more or less like, hey, did you like this bike? Or I saw this going on. And, the fun comments. So we do get a lot of fun comments, to say the least. And, have a chance next time to read them on air and kind of go through some fun stuff. And
You're one of my favorites right now on air.
what is it? Is it a good one? Is it me?
Yeah, pretty good. So I just wrote a piece on the 36ers 32er, a gravel bike. And the first comment on it was by Nick. And it said, LOL, ooh, no thanks.
It's not a bike for Nick, man. They are not into that bike.
Maybe he's a short guy,
I did get one for the for that $50,000 specialized team edition bike. Yeah, that's being auctioned off. And someone said, this must be a typo, mirror saddle. And I guess they weren't familiar with the specialized mirror. And they didn't know if it was a mirror. That was
look down at your chamois.
It's just make sure you're landed in the right spot. But I'm gonna get online later and just kind of clear that up for them, or maybe just keep it a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got mirrors
I think
in
that's
the saddle
a niche that needs to be filled by somebody in bike industry.
I mean, it's a mirror. You're gonna sit on it. It's gonna hurt.
You can find it probably just not on the bike site.
Yeah, right.
So I got one, and this I still tell people this one because it was funny. So after I wrote my retirement post on BikeRumor, just kind of like talking about why I was leaving and all that. I actually haven't read the comments on there. I don't know if there are, but some people emailed in, and then Zach forwarded me this one. I think it's just hilarious. It was basically like, congrats on retirement. Your stuff was pretty good most of the time. So I was like, all right,
all right, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean,
iron it out.
Hey,
See you guys later.
It can't be 100% bangers.
To write that email. Yeah, gotta love it. The time it took to write that email. That's they took time out of their day just to send you up.
For all we know, that's somebody who never gives anyone compliments, and that was like the biggest thing
they could be
done.
a real tough, a real stickler.
Tyler, thanks for all you did. It was all pretty mediocre. So see you later.
For all we know, it could have been wrong. So let's just say, I bet it was wrong.
Actually,
Tyler's wife,
but whatever.
Probably was wrong. All right. So, guess until next month, save your questions. Don't save your comments. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and thanks for the team for being here.
Happy Thanksgiving. Hope everyone has a good holiday.
Season. We'll see you next month.
Flies.
Time flies. We're talking about bikes on the internet.
Quickly.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.